Hey everyone, welcome back to the FantasyPros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, as always, with Mike Tagliere, and today we're going to dig into the current expert consensus running back rankings and talk about players we think the industry is too high on, players we think the industry is too low on. You can find tags on Twitter at Mike Tagliere NFL, and I'm at Bobby Fantasy Pro. Tags, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's pretty nice because the next 2 weeks, last week, I think I released 3 articles. This week, it'll just be 3 articles. And I know some people are like, wow, 3 articles, but that's really slow for me. So I'm able to start diving into some research. And when I heard about the topic for today's show, talking about the expert consensus and who we believe that some experts are too high on, who are too low, it's nice because I have some factoids to help try and back some of those up.
You know, I know we've heard some of your favorite running backs and everything, but rankings are always changing. They will continue to change until we do these drafts. So it's important to continue covering it. We don't know if you've got a draft coming up this week, next week, or whenever it's going to be. So we just want to make sure you're completely prepared whenever your draft comes up, because things are always changing, right, Tags?
Yeah, no, things are definitely always changing, and it's it's weird because some people say, the NFL offseason, like, what do we need to know now? And it's like, what do we need to pay attention to? Do we really need to pay attention as close as we do? And yeah, to be honest, because it's like, even me, like I walked away, like I had a wedding that I stood up in this weekend where it's like I was away for an entire day, and I came back and I had to catch up on some news. And it's little things that will give us this slight little advantage in our fantasy leagues, because in the end, that's what it all comes down to is there's so much parity in the NFL and fantasy football right now, where it's like any little edge that you can get, you want to take it. So we're here to kind of hopefully give you those little tidbits that, because we don't walk away from the game. I pay attention every single day. But so getting those little tidbits, throwing them at you so that you can take them with you to your draft.
And for instance, like Jerick McKinnon was ranked 35 as a running back 3 months ago. Last month he was ranked like 22. Now he's all the way up to 14. I thought I was crazy for having him number 12, and I know that's a little high still, but people are excited about McKinnon. Somebody else, Jordan Howard, he dropped all the way down to about 19, 20. People thought he was going to get cut right after the draft. That didn't happen. Now that we know he's not cut, he's back up to 13. So there's a lot of movement going on. Looking forward to chatting about it. But first I wanted to mention something. So this weekend I went on a John Boy's YouTube binge. I don't know if you've seen him. He's the chart party guy from SB Nation. Well, he also did the Breaking Madden series and a few other projects. My favorite of which, though, was he made a Madden team of quarterbacks only versus a Madden team of defensive ends only. And it got me thinking, okay, if there was a tournament with all the positions, okay, so a team of running backs, team of wide receivers, team of defensive tackles, which team of one position would win this tournament?
I'm going to go with wide receiver. And the reason I say that, like, these are the most agile, like they're the craziest athletes out there. Now, running backs can be considered in that, I think.
You think they can block J.J. Watt?
Well, that's the thing is, like, can they get around J.J. Watt? Sure. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, can J.J. Watt catch a crazy athlete like Julio Jones? The answer would be no. So, like, that's the thing with me, because I think quarterbacks are close, because a lot of, like, guys that go on to play wide receiver, running back, they played quarterback in, like, high school. Like, those are the natural athletes. We've talked about on this show before, like, pitchers in baseball, like, guys who play third base, first base, they probably pitched at some point in their life, where it's like, you want to say quarterbacks, but at the same time, wide receivers are the way they are. Cornerbacks are a lesser version of wide receivers, just because they may not be able to snag the ball out of the air like a wide receiver can, but they can mirror someone's movements better. But yeah, I'd say wide receivers, just because I think that those are the ridiculous athletes. And I think a lot of those guys, if they took handoffs from out of the backfield, that they'd be able to evade some tackles with their speed and their agility. They may not break tackles as much as running backs would, but running backs also can't run the routes that wide receivers do.
You're right. And some of these wide receivers are some big boys, right? And yeah, a few of them can throw the football. We've seen it before. I went a different way, though. For my finals matchup, and I'm not sure who I have winning, I've got tight ends versus safeties. I think both of them are athletic enough to play every position. Both of them are big enough to play on the lines in the trenches.
Safety's interesting. That's definitely an interesting one. I think I would like that over tight ends. Tight ends I think would be too slow against, like, if you were to go against a team of wide receivers. I just don't think that they'd be able to hang with them. You just think of, like, even because Gronk's dominant for his position, but it's because of who he lines up against. A lot of linebackers, a lot of nickel cornerbacks. So I think safety is an interesting one, though, because those guys...
You've got a wide spread of athletes, right? You've got some big old guys. You've got some super fast guys. I think safeties is my answer.
Yeah, I'll go with wide receivers, and I'm curious to hear everybody else's take on this one, to hear what everybody would say. Who would win a game of full all wide receivers? Like, you could pick any wide receivers I want, and Bobby could pick any safeties he wants. I think I'm going wide receiver still, but the safety is definitely a good argument.
I didn't do this special research, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to post it on Twitter, my all safeties team. You post your all wide receivers team, and we'll have a vote to see who people pick.
Nice. Let's do it.
Okay, so like I said, we're going to dive into running back rankings. We're just going to get right to it here today. If you want to follow along with us, just go to fantasypros.com, hover over NFL, then click rankings. Tags and I are going to be covering standard scoring. I mean, I figure most people are still playing that. And it's easy for y'all to make adjustments in your head to PPR since we've grown used to doing that for so long. The webpage is already on standard by default. You're going to want to click running backs there in the drop-down. You can see all the tiers. And this entire page is generated by the expert consensus. So when I say ECR, that means expert consensus rankings. Well, we've got 45 experts who have already done these rankings. And, you can click on the players, see who each expert has them ranked. So if you want to know where Sean Corner has them ranked, since he's like the boss of rankings, you can click on Dalvin Cook and see where he's got him ranked compared to it. But right now, Tags and I are going to tell you 5 guys that we think the experts are too high on. And then we'll each go 5 guys we think the experts are too low on. Tags, why don't you go first with one guy that the experts are...
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to start at the top of my board. Like I'm going to work my way down through the rankings, but I do want to make something clear. And it's a difference between those who do rankings and those who do projections, right? Because Sean Corner is the master of projections. Like he's so good at them, where that's why he's always consistently at the top of the leaderboards, because projections are going to take regression to the mean, right? Like it's going to basically give you the average of everything. And most of the time it's going to end up correct. Now there's going to be outliers, but some people do rankings by their projections, which, like you would have ranked Frank Gore as a top 20 running back just because he's going to be durable, he's going to get carries, but would I draft him there? So when I do my rankings, I look at my rankings in a way like, basically I'm in this position. My job is to tell people, who I would draft where. So I don't do my rankings by projections just because some player will end up finishing as a top 15 running back. It doesn't mean I have to rank him there because I wouldn't draft him there. And the first player I'm going to talk about is one of those players, and that's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry right now is ranked as the number 18 running back among the expert consensus. I would not draft him at 18. Now, he might finish as an RB18 because of the touchdowns. He should have the goal line role, I would assume. But at the same time, I'm not drafting him there because he's going to be extremely inconsistent. His role is one that, Bobby, this is, and I think I mentioned this on another podcast where we have kind of overlooked the changing of guard in Tennessee. Like, we automatically assume Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry are going to split this backfield role, and it's going to be like a DeMarco Murray situation. That's all whatever. And like, that wasn't great.
I mean, even then you didn't use Derrick Henry last year.
Exactly. Derrick Henry was a flex player. So we're talking about an RB18, which means you think he's the middle of the road RB2, like someone that you would draft in the third, like late second, early third round. That's where basically the experts have him right now. But the thing is, you used him as a flex last year, but now it's a different offense. Matt LaFleur coming over from LA, coming out from under Sean McVay. Now, the question is so he made a lateral move to go to Tennessee. Why would he do that? The reason he did that is because he was not calling the plays for LA. Sean McVay said, I'm the coach and I'm going to call the plays. You're still going to have the title of offensive coordinator. So he wanted a promotion, even though it's the same job title. So going there, is he going to follow McVay? And if he does, Todd Gurley was used a ton in the passing game. Like it was a one-back system. The only time they went away from Todd Gurley is if he needed a breather, or if they were going to like they were blowing a team out and they just pulled him out of the game in the fourth quarter. That's the only time. So who better fits that role if they're going to go with that type of system? It's definitely Dion Lewis, and you don't pay him $20 million to come in and not do anything. So I'm struggling, man. I have no idea what people are saying, why they would take Derrick Henry here.
I've got Derrick Henry as my number 23 running back, so I'm right. I'm a little bit behind where the expert consensus is, but where do you have him, like 28, 29?
I'm not that low. That's the thing, is like I'm trying to remain like, okay, well, maybe I'm a little too low. So my projections, he came in, I think it was at 24 or 23. And that's the thing. So I'm ranking him in that range right now because I don't want to be like, I don't want to say that I'm all in on Dion Lewis because I think it's a fluid situation. And here's the reason why I can't be all out. Dion Lewis has never really stood up to a big workload. He's never been like, he's not a big running back. What is he? 5'10", maybe 5'9". he did well down the stretch for the Patriots, but the reason that he kind of took so long to develop in his career is because he had a lot of injuries. If he gets hurt, we have to keep that in mind as Derrick Henry all of a sudden walks into, then he's that low-end RB1, high-end RB2, because they really don't have another option. But as of now, if all remains as is, I see no way that Derrick Henry should be drafted as a top 20 running back.
Yeah, it's close for me, and I can't figure out what to do with this one because, like, here's the thing. Derrick Henry's a lot closer to Todd Gurley than Dion Lewis is. I know Derrick Henry has his struggles and everything, but he's an absolute freak of nature. This is someone we thought was going to be a top 5 running back someday. And you know what? If Dion Lewis wasn't on this team right now, where would you be drafting Derrick Henry? 6th, 7th among running backs?
I wouldn't put him that high because he's still not a great pass catcher, but I'd put him right in that area with Jordan Howard, Devonta Freeman. That's the area of ranking. So it'd be like that low-end RB1, high-end RB2. That's where I'd put him.
Based on what I saw in the playoffs last year, I would rather have him than Leonard Fournette if he was the bell cow back.
No.
Well, Leonard Fournette has the foot issues that he's always dealing with. I think he's always going to be dealing with. So I would have had Derrick Henry as my number 8 running back had Dion Lewis not come over. Now, there's a chance that he's still the guy. We don't know this for sure. I know they paid Dion Lewis quite a bit of money. I think Dion Lewis probably is the head back. But if Derrick Henry takes over when Dion Lewis gets hurt, and I'm not going to say he's going to get hurt, but there's a pretty decent chance that he will based on his history, Derrick Henry is immediately he's a running back 1 virtually every single week. And so I can understand this. The thing is, like, until then, are you going to play Derrick Henry any week? He's one of these guys where the projections are going to say, yeah, he's a flex play, and he'll prove worthy of a flex play half the time. In fact, he'll be pretty good. He'll have 2 or 3 really big games, and most of the time he's just absolutely going to kill you. So I'm not playing that game. I want more clarity in the situation. I think that we're going to, at the end, maybe draft Dion Lewis like 15 and Derrick Henry 35. Or maybe it's the opposite. We draft Derrick Henry 12 and Dion Lewis 35. You know what I mean? So right now, though, I've got them 23 and 24. I can't make up my mind.
Well, it's fair. And here's the thing is, like, even if you go back to last year and you're like, well, I think Derrick Henry's going to get a small bump from last year. He averaged 11.7 touches per game last year, which ranked 42nd among running backs. So even if he got a small bump, even if you bumped up to 13 touches per game or something like that, to finish as like a top 15 running back, you need to get into that 15, 16 touch range. And if you're not, you need to have a lot of receptions like an Alvin Kamara. And we know that Derrick Henry is not going to do that. It's like when you look at a fantasy points per touch, that's why Henry needs to get more than most, because a fantasy points per touch favors running backs who catch passes because it's a lot easier to average a higher yards per reception than it is yards per carry. So you're going to naturally see Derrick Henry be at the lower end of a fantasy points per touch. So he needs a lot of touches. And that's the thing is, like, from week to week, Derrick Henry, is it possible that he finishes a top 20 running back? I said yes, because all the touchdowns. But if he does not score a touchdown for you, and if he gets his 12, 13 touches per game, you're going to be sitting there with 40 to 60 yards and no touchdown, and it's going to kill you.
All right, here's my first one, and it's going to make some people a little bit upset, but Alvin Kamara, we've talked about this quite a bit before. I mean, he is ranked 2 spots higher than Saquon Barkley. And, I hated the Saquon Barkley pick. I love him in fantasy. And I wouldn't even for 1 second consider drafting Kamara ahead of Saquon Barkley. Kamara's going to get 150 fewer touches, right? I mean, who is Barkley going to compete with? He's going to get 350 touches. Kamara's going to be sitting there right at 200, maybe 220 this year.
I'm pulling it up now because I wanted to see my projections where I have it. So I have Alvin Kamara down for 170 carries and 83 receptions. So I still believe he's getting 253 touches, and I have Barkley down for...
Still getting that many? Last year he had 205.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm getting a bump from Ingram. I know they're talking about that they didn't want him to get any more carries with Ingram out of the lineup. That's going to happen. And by the way, the reason that Kamara...
Boston Scott's going to get a bunch of touches, man. The Saints are a machine. It's not like they're going to have to rely on Kamara to save them.
Well, and if you look at what I'm saying is, like, if you go back to the beginning of last year, Alvin Kamara wasn't getting as much work with Adrian Peterson there. Like, he had games with 1 or 2 carries in them to start the season. So if you look, once Adrian Peterson left the team, his touches per game went up. So like that's what I'm saying is, like, paying attention to all this stuff. Kamara I have at 253 touches, but I have Saquon Barkley at 310 carries and 68 receptions. So
there you go.
I'm projecting big things for Saquon Barkley, and I have him as my number 3 player actually overall. We're going to talk about him in a minute.
What?
Yeah, I do. I've slowly changed where I'm going with him. But Kamara, I have right in line with the consensus. Like, I'm right in line with that. And the reason I say that is because he plays in an offense where it's just so explosive, and you can never forget about Drew Brees. I know some people are sleeping on Brees in fantasy drafts. I think he could turn out to be a steal this year. But the fact that Kamara does so much work in the receiving game, the fact that they cannot stack the box with Drew Brees under center, it changes the dynamic. And that's why Kamara, he fell into a perfect situation. And here's the thing. Here's the part where I'm struggling with. Do I take Alvin Kamara or do I take David Johnson? Now, I lean David Johnson slightly, I think. But I don't think it's crazy to go Kamara over Johnson, just because when you talk about offenses and what the offensive scoring means to a running back, especially, it means a ton. And do we project the Cardinals to be, even a top 20 scoring offense? I do not. And I think that hurts David Johnson. So Alvin Kamara, knowing that he's going to be part of a top 5 scoring offense, that does wonders for him. So, I mean, I understand if someone wants to take.
That's nice if he was like the full-time running back, but he's got Mark Ingram there. Like you said, 250 touches. I think that's his ceiling, man.
I don't know if it's his ceiling. 170 carries over 16 games. That's just over 10 a game. I don't think that's crazy. And his receptions are pretty much in line with what he had last year. I think I actually dialed him back a little bit, where I don't think he has it's close. I knew that. Ingram being out for the first 4 games is going to give Kamara double-digit carries. And by the way, there were just 3 games in 2017 where he had more than 10 carries.
Wow.
The efficiency is going to come down for sure, but I still think he's a relatively safe pick atop the drafts.
I think he's safe-ish, but what's more safe than David Johnson, who had 370 touches? Are you seriously considering taking Kamara over Johnson?
I would not fault someone for it, just because I believe there's upside for more with Kamara, in terms of their ceilings. I believe David Johnson's floor is really, I think it's lower than people think. I think there's a realistic possibility where David Johnson finishes behind someone like Leonard Fournette in fantasy football this year. It's not to say that David Johnson's skill set is bad or anything like that. It's obviously not, but I'm saying this because he's part of a really bad offense that the offensive line has gotten even worse. They didn't really rebuild the offensive line. They attacked quarterback. They went wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. So it hurt them there. I just don't think the offensive line is great. And I think we saw David Johnson over the end of 2016. I think over the second half of the season, I was looking at that, and I think he averaged 3.4 yards per carry from week 8 on or something like that. So he was relying a lot on the receiving. We don't know if Sam Bradford is going to check it down nearly as much as Carson Palmer did. We don't know if Josh Rosen, if he would do that. That's what I'm saying, is just there's so many ifs about David Johnson, and tying yourself to a running back in a bad offense is not usually a good idea.
Let me ask you a question, Tags, okay? You said time and time again, everybody in the expert industry has said time and time again, Alvin Kamara is due for regression. There's no way he can repeat the efficiency that he had. Maybe he'll get some more touches, but even then, last year, he was amazing. He had 233 fantasy points in standard leagues, right? That's incredible. There's a chance that he passes that, but if he does, it's not going to be by much, right?
That's the thing, is I'm giving him 50 more carries this year. I just looked at it. So my carries, I have him bumped up 50 carries, and I don't think that's too much to ask with Ingram being out the first 4 games, with him having knowing the offense a little bit more, not a rookie anymore. There's no other significant player in the backfield who can steal those touches. And if they do, I'd be shocked. I would legitimately be shocked. 170 carries. Christian McCaffrey is going to get close to that number. I have McCaffrey down for 160. So I don't think it's that much. I think Kamara is a better runner than McCaffrey. I think that's hands down. I don't think that should be even debated. So to say he should get 10 more carries, I don't think that's outlandish or anything.
Okay, so he had 233. Let's say his ceiling is 275 then. Is that fair?
That's fair.
That's a huge season. David Johnson in 2016 had 328. That's 50 more points than Kamara's ceiling.
Well, touches, but that's the thing, is David Johnson, can he score? He's not scoring 20 touchdowns again. He scored 20 touchdowns in 2016. I would be shocked if David Johnson scores more than 12 touchdowns this year. Shocked. And that's me being real. I just don't have much faith in the Cardinals offense.
Okay, so if David Johnson scores 12 touchdowns and continues getting a ton of touches, you know how many points he has? 2 more points than Alvin Kamara's ceiling that you just listed.
It's possible, and that's what I'm saying. So we're talking about standard. In standard, to be fair, I'm looking at it right now. My standard projections have David Johnson scoring 19 more points than Alvin Kamara. So yes, I'm just saying that I don't think it's crazy to say that Alvin Kamara maybe should go over David Johnson. In PPR leagues, I would actually probably take Kamara over David Johnson, just because Kamara, we know
they have no one to pass to. They're going to pass to David Johnson so much, man.
Well, Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald are kind of like that short field receiver, where it's like I just think Carson Palmer took checking down to a whole different level. When it came to David Johnson. Like, I think that there was a lot. I mean, I've dialed back my expectations for him in the receiving game a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they're in that range, but I think in the end, what it comes down to is I think I'm a little bit higher on Kamara than you are.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair. I won't say it's crazy, but I was very surprised that you said it. Let's move on to your next running back, though.
No, for sure. All right. So another overvalued running back I have here is Kenyan Drake, and it's not because of his skill set. It's the same reason David Johnson is I'm a little hesitant to draft him. And the reason I say this with Drake is because he's playing on a Dolphins team that I think as a team, I think they rushed for like 2 or 3 touchdowns last year. So it wasn't like obviously a priority. Getting Ryan Tannehill back, does that help the offense? Maybe. I don't necessarily think that it's going to bump their offense like into a top 10 scoring offense or anything. So they're going to be a bad offense. We know that. They're a bad team overall. Their offensive line, they lost their starting center. They added Josh Sitton. There's moving parts in this offensive line. It wasn't good to begin with. Kenyan Drake was someone that was a league winner last year. And on this show, we talked about it. And I spent so much of my fab budget on Kenyan Drake because I loved walking into that role that Jay Ajayi had. Yeah. But here's the issue. Okay, Damian Williams got hurt towards the end of the year, which was another reason to love Kenyan Drake, because all of a sudden he's getting those touches. Because if you remember, when Damian Williams was healthy, they were kind of sharing the workload. And now, not only did they sign, 90-year-old Frank Gore, who doesn't come to the Dolphins to sit on the bench. Like, if Frank Gore was going to be there and be inactive or just be third on the depth chart, I don't think he would sign there. I think he was promised maybe 8 to 10 touches per game, and that's fine. That's nothing crazy.
Goal line carries.
Yeah, and then you have Kalen Ballage, who was drafted by the team, who Adam Gase is talking up as a 3-down back, even though he's a better receiver than anything. So in the end, they felt it necessary to draft a running back. They felt it necessary to go out and get Frank Gore. We have such a small sample size on Kenyan Drake. So to see him drafted as the 17th running back overall, there's just too many questions and a bad offense for me to spend that equity on him.
I'm with you. I've got him at 19. I'm thinking maybe that's a little bit too high because, I don't know, I would put Rashad Penny ahead of him, so I'm going to move Drake down. I would put Mark Ingram. I would draft Mark Ingram ahead of him because, I know Mark Ingram's going to be out 4 games, but when he comes back, he might be an RB1 every week, but if he's not, he's really close to it. So I'm moving Drake down to 21, right in between Mark Ingram and Alex Collins. I think you're right about this one.
The running back that I'm debating putting over Kenyan Drake right now in my rankings is Ronald Jones. I'm already higher on Ronald Jones than most, so I'm trying to remain level-headed on this, but at the same time, I mean, there's no competition there. Like
Peyton Barber, man, he's the starter right now. That's scary.
Get out of here. He's not the starter.
That's what they're saying, dude. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's stupid, but they're saying this.
But we heard the same thing about Carlos Hyde and Joe Williams last year, and I'm not buying it. Like this is a thing where you don't.
They didn't say Joe Williams was the starting running back. They said it doesn't seem like Carlos Hyde fits Shanahan's offense, so maybe he's going to split carries with Joe Williams. Right now, Peyton Barber is getting first team reps. He is the starting running back.
I think they're making the rookie earn it, and that's what most coaches do. And that's the thing. Like I don't think you spend a high second round pick on a player if you're going to sit him on the bench, especially when you have a team like they do. I mean, there's no way I see this happening. Yeah, they don't. If they liked Peyton Barber, they would have waited longer in the draft and took someone like Kalen Ballage or someone like that later in the draft. But they made it a point to grab the running back at the top of the second round. It wasn't even late second round. It was the top of the second round. Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
I hope you're right, but until I know that you're right, I'm not moving him up, man. I'll put him at 20, right ahead of Penny.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't take Ronald Jones over Kenyan Drake, though?
Not right now. Nope, not right now.
All right. That's it. They're right next to each other, and I'm debating putting Jones over him.
Let's see what the expert consensus says here. They've got Kenyan Drake at 17 and Ronald Jones at 27. What is that?
That's dumb. I'm sorry. That's dumb.
Wow, that's really stupid. Who is doing this?
I don't know. I don't know. But
okay, I'm not going to call anyone out on the podcast, but I'm looking at it now, and they need to get their rankings together because that's not smart. Mine is LaShawn McCoy. We've talked about him a lot on this podcast over the past 2 months, and he's just old, man. It's not happening anymore with LaShawn McCoy. Right now, his ECR is number 12, ahead of Jerick McKinnon, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon. No.
I'm struggling with McCoy because he was someone when I did my initial rankings, I like wanted to like put him down at like 16, 17. But when you kind of go through the Bills team and it's like you have to figure out like who's getting touches here. Like there's not many players in this team who deserve touches. They lost 3 offensive starters this year on their offensive line. That's a problem. But here's the thing. It's hard to pass on him as like a top 12 guy when he's just getting so much volume when he's healthy. Like when he's playing, and that's the thing is, we talk about the volume and what it means to running backs, and LeSean McCoy is going to get as much as he could possibly handle.
Sure, he did last year too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And what did he finish as last year? I want to say he number 7 running back.
That's a little bit misguided. Okay, look at his game logs. How many times did he finish as a top 20 running back?
Well, hold on a second. I'm gonna answer your question for you right here. So I have my trusty old boom bust and everything in between sheet that I've been working on. So LeSean McCoy,
it's going to be ugly. I'm telling you, it's going to be ugly. I think he was a top 20 running back 7 times.
So here's the deal. On average, it took 11.5 PPR points for a running back to finish as a top 24, 17.5 PPR points for them to finish as an RB1. He was an RB1 43% of the time, which ranked 7th among running backs, which is obviously good. And he was an RB2 75% of the time, which puts him 8th among running backs.
That's PPR, man. We're talking standard. I'm looking at it right now. I was right. 7 times he was a top 20 running back. That's it.
Well, there's not many running backs that offer more consistency, though. Like when you look around the league, like you have the guys that are being drafted above him are the ones that do that. Like, is there anybody going behind him in drafts? Maybe Jordan Howard. He would be one.
Howard, McKinnon, McCaffrey, Mixon. I would take all 4 of them over him.
McKinnon hasn't done that, though. Like, what I'm saying is, like, in terms of...
He hasn't done it,
right.
But, neither is Saquon Barkley. Are you not going to draft Saquon Barkley ahead of McCoy?
Well, he hasn't had the chance. McKinnon's had a chance to do it, but...
He's never had a chance to be the guy.
Well, he shouldn't have been, to be fair. To be fair, he was actually supposed to be.
You're right, but he is going to be the guy this year.
He was supposed to be the guy after Adrian Peterson, but he kind of fumbled that. He let that job go. To 2 players, by the way, Matt Asiata and Latavius Murray both stole the workhorse job from him. But I'm not low on Jerick McKinnon. I'm actually right there with you. I think I have him as my number 14 running back, so I'm right there. But I'm torn on McCoy, right? Because like I hate older running backs. Like, and he's going to be 30. He's 30 years old this year. Like that's not good. So he's going to be trending down. That's just natural. What happens? He's going to be part of a bad offense. So I'm not going to get him where he's being drafted. I know that. But he's one of those players where I know why people want to draft him just because it's safety and touches. But he's also someone that's been dinged up before. Like he'll miss parts of games, full games. I'm with you in the fact that I'm not going to draft him, but I do have him around the consensus though. I have him as my number 12 running back right now.
All right, Tags, before you jump onto your big rant, I want to talk to you all about the sponsor of today's show, draft.com. Tags, we need to get in a few of these best ball leagues together, man. I know you've done like 20 plus, and I've done, I don't know, almost a dozen. I like to do the slower drafts, and I don't really do more than one at once because then my mind, focuses on, crap, I needed a tight end in that league, and so I took one in this league and I already had, Hunter Henry, which obviously I got my money back because draft.com's customer service is awesome. But yeah, we need to do one together, Tags.
No, we definitely do. And the thing is like, I had someone on Twitter the other day. He's like, hey, am I in a best ball league with you? And he like snapshotted a picture of my team. And I was like, yeah, that's mine. He's like, oh, that's cool. He's like, if you ever want to play, like if you ever play another one, just send me an invite. And it's funny because when you sign up through our site, like, so when you go on our site, like in any of my articles that I have, it's got like a little link in there to go sign up through draft. And if you sign up with us, you get a free entry into a tournament. And then it's automatically going to have you follow me. So if I start a best ball league, my followers, they all get notifications basically saying that I'm starting a league, which is really cool. It kind of sucks for me though, because like my listeners, the ones that are invited right away, and it fills up relatively quick, where it's just like all of a sudden my players, the ones that I love, are being taken because they're by people that are following me and like all my work. So sometimes I'll just join random ones rather than start my own. But if you do sign up through our link, you'll follow myself and Bobby and be notified if we start a best ball league.
And by the way these best ball leagues work, if you haven't done one before or even heard about it, is you draft your team in advance. You draft 18 players. There's no waiver wires, no trades. You don't set your lineup any week. It just takes your best possible lineup from your roster. You don't get to replace someone if they get injured, so you got to draft with that in mind. There is so much strategy to these best ball leagues, and draft.com is the best at the best ball leagues. If you want to sign up, we've got a really cool deal for you. Go to fantasypros.com/offer, and if you're a new user that deposits $10 to draft.com, you'll get a $65 value. That's a 6-month free upgrade to our highest premium package on Fantasy Pros. Covers all sports, all the tools. It's going to give you Draft Wizard. It's going to give you My Playbook. All this stuff for your fantasy football season. It's going to go for 6 months, so you can use it for baseball right now as well. And it's a great offer. You can win $10. You can win money with that $10 as well for that you deposit into draft.com. So it's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. fantasypros.com/offer. All right, Tags, why don't you go on your rant, man?
All right, so I have no idea what people are thinking when they have Jay Ajayi as the number 20 running back. I don't.
Yeah, this was my next one too. Let's combine these because we were going a little slow anyway. So this was my next one.
It's gross. I mean, I don't know if anybody watched the games that he played with the Eagles, and I know he broke a couple long touchdown runs, but did you know that he topped 34 snaps just once during his time with the Eagles? None of his final 4 games netted anything more than 30 snaps. So don't come at me telling me that his role was growing as he was learning the offense. No, it wasn't, because he didn't play more than 30 snaps over the final 4 games. When you play that few of snaps, it's extremely tough for you to produce on a consistent basis. When you go and you talk about the top running backs in the league, I'm going to give you an idea as to how many snaps per game these guys average. Le'Veon Bell, 63 snaps per game. Ezekiel Elliott, 59. Todd Gurley, 53. When you talk about those numbers and then you go down to Jay Ajayi, who's getting less than 30 snaps per game with the Eagles, what are we doing here? Like, I'm sorry. Yep. Like, if he got carries on literally half of his snaps that he played, he now might get into the top 20 running backs. Jay Ajayi, I'm sorry. I don't get it. I'm usually not one to shut things down, but I literally have zero clue how he is... I don't know. He's one of only 3 running backs in the last, I think, 8 years who has had more than 200 carries in a season and finished outside the top 24. So his efficiency isn't great either. So you can't be like, well, his efficiency is off the charts. No, it's not. No, it's not.
He doesn't really do much in the receiving game either. So if this is a PPR league, it doesn't change. Actually, it goes backwards even more.
And Darren Sproles is coming back.
They've said Darren Sproles is going to start because that's what they do. That's what these teams do now. Their pass catching running back gets so many snaps. And Jay Ajayi is not only going to be the first and second down back, he's going to be splitting some work with Corey Clement, right?
Yep. Corey Clement actually showed off like towards the end of the season and got an even bigger role in the Super Bowl. He is good. And that's the thing is like Doug Peterson doesn't want a workhorse, and that's fine. Some people thought that they were going to draft a running back in the draft, and the fact that they didn't, maybe that's why people are moving Jay Ajayi up. But when you look at their depth chart, they had Ajayi, they have Sproles, they have Donnell Pumphrey, they have Corey Clement. Apparently Wendell Smallwood's going to get cut, whatever. But yeah, this is not a backfield that you want to invest in, especially the number 20 running back. That means that you're willing to spend. So we'll say that
4th round pick.
I was about to say that would be like a 4th round pick. No, hell no.
Not even close, man. So where do you have him in your rankings? I've got him RB 31.
I have him at RB 28, and I think that I felt like I was being generous. I actually, I'm not a fan, man.
Plus, he's got the knee issues. Like, what are the chances he plays the entire season? I know he hasn't really missed any time yet, but they've said when they drafted him, Jay Ajayi might only play in the NFL for 2 years.
No, well, that's very true. He's never played a full 16-game season. That's happened. He hasn't necessarily been great around the goal line. Back with Miami in 2015, he scored 1 touchdown. Last year, 1 touchdown is what he scored on the ground. Because Miami, he didn't score at all, and then he had 1 rushing touchdown with Philly, 1 receiving touchdown. So, I don't know. If you remove like 2 big games against Buffalo in 2016, Jay Ajayi doesn't look like he's a great running back. And
agree.
That's the thing. I'm not saying he's a terrible running back. I think he's fine. I think he's Isaiah Crowell upgraded a little bit, but he's playing 30-something snaps. So I'm not getting excited about him.
Kenyan Drake came in and replaced him, and Kenyan Drake was significantly better than Jay Ajayi. Nobody could deny that watching the eye test.
You know what's so funny about that, Bobby? I love that you brought that up too, because I love the fact that everybody blamed Miami on Jay Ajayi's struggles. They were like, oh, it's because he plays in a bad team. Yep. He's going to go to Philly. He's going to be a top 12 running back. I was never going to buy that because of the way that Doug Peterson runs his offense. I thought it was awesome to see Kenyan Drake kind of go off and outproduce Jay Ajayi in every facet of the game. And now you're seeing Jay Ajayi drafted a couple spots behind Kenyan Drake. I mentioned I was lower on Drake. I would take Drake over Jay Ajayi every day of the week.
It sounds like we're just like have something against Jay Ajayi, but people were so wrong on this. I remember it was the easiest sell opportunity ever. When he got traded to Philadelphia, we were begging people to trade him, and I hope y'all listened.
Yeah. No, yes, I remember that very clearly. So I'm glad you and I are on the same page in this one.
So here's the thing. Like right now, he is ranked ahead of Penny, Guice, Ingram, Deion Lewis. That's bizarre to me. Down at 31, I've got him behind Tevin Coleman, Marlon Mack, Aaron Jones, right? I mean, it's an entire different company.
Oh, yeah. If you told me Aaron Jones was the starter for the Packers today, if you told me Jamal Williams was the starter for the Packers, I would take either of them. If you told me one was the starter, I would take either of them over Ajayi.
I mean, we don't even have to say over Ajayi. That's obvious. If Aaron Jones was the starter for the Packers, I'd take him over Jordan Howard and LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, wow.
Maybe Melvin Gordon, too. If Aaron Jones is the starter for the Packers, are you serious?
Well, the reason I say that is because even if he's a starter, I don't think it means that he's getting 20 touches a game. Like, I just think that there's still going to be somewhat of a timeshare. Like, they're not going to, say, Jamal Williams, you're just never going to play again. I still think it would be somewhat of a timeshare, but knowing who that starting running back definitely has value.
That's fair. Yeah, so maybe in the Christian McCaffrey range instead. But even so, his stock jumps a ton if he's the starter.
Yeah, Jay Ajayi doesn't have top 6 upside, in Philadelphia. He doesn't. I'm sorry. So I would rather take someone in that, especially in that range. It's take someone with some upside.
All right. My next guy is Alex Collins, and I feel a little bit weird about this one because I like Alex Collins. I was hyping him all last year. When everyone was slow to jump on board, I was like, guys, he just keeps doing it, 75 yards every single game. I don't know what to tell you. He's not getting that much work. He's going to get more work because he's earning it. And eventually he did. He got 20 touches pretty much every game, and he was finishing as an RB1. Let's see, 5 of the last 7 weeks. He was great, but Kenneth Dixon's coming back.
That's the thing, Colin. I'm right there with you, man. And I felt dirty putting him on my list. I actually have him on my list as well because I just feel like there's no risk built into his price. And that's the thing is when you're drafting in fantasy drafts, what you want ideally is you want to take a player who's got some equity kind of built into his price. Whereas Collins, I have him right around that 26, 27 range. So whereas ECR is, 19? Yeah, he's at 19 in the ECR. So it's I feel like that's his upside because going back to last year, here's the thing. Collins played kind of out of his mind, and it was also a Ravens offense that turned more to the run game. Joe Flacco's pass attempts went way down, but Collins actually finished as the RB8 from week 8 through week 17. So he played really well. And that's the thing. You were on that one. I think we had Justin Boone on the show during one of the waiver wire weeks. And he's like, yeah, Collins. And you guys were agreeing on him. And I was like, I don't know. Buck Allen seems to still have a role. And I'm just not, I didn't love the offense. So Collins outplayed it. But here's my issue. Collins became a free agent this offseason. He didn't really generate much interest outside of Baltimore, and Baltimore did re-sign him to a 1-year deal. We're talking about a 23-year-old running back here. This isn't Adrian Peterson. This isn't DeMarco Murray. It's a 23-year-old running back that Baltimore only liked enough.
That's crazy.
To add him to a 1-year deal. It blows my mind, and it might be because of his limitations in the passing game, even though he did better as the year went on. That's my concern. It is a little concerning that Kenneth Dixon's coming back. But at the same time, I'm willing to say that, yeah, he's maybe a borderline RB2, but I just don't like where his cost is right now. It's got no risk built into it.
All right, here's my number 5, man. Since you agreed with Collins, I'll go number 5, then you can go number 5, and we'll move on to the other side of things. How about every single Cleveland Browns running back, right? Carlos Hyde is going 32. Dookie Johnson's going 34. I have no idea why I called him Dookie, but I think that's got to stick. And Nick Chubb is going 41. Actually, you know what? Nick Chubb, let's take him off this list. 41, I think, is a pretty good price for Chubb. I'd maybe go, let's see, I've actually got him 39. So let's take him off. We'll just go Dookie Johnson and Carlos Hyde are being drafted way too high. There's 3 guys here, and it's the Browns offense, plus they've got all these passing weapons.
Yeah, Dookie Johnson, that should stick. Man, he's a good football player, but I don't know what people are seeing here in a standard league by ranking him that high. I don't get it at all, especially with all the weapons they've added in Cleveland. It's a different team. And Carlos Hyde, I wrote in a best ball players to avoid list last week. Carlos Hyde was on that list.
And you love Carlos Hyde.
Yes. In the paragraph I wrote about him, I said, if you were to ask me a month ago, I would have said Carlos Hyde was like a buy low, that people are underestimating the effect that he can have in Cleveland. But then everything changed with the draft. When they go and they grab Nick Chubb at the start of the second round, it kind of tells you everything that you need to know. When you start hearing about the details of Carlos Hyde's contract and that basically it's a 1-year deal and then they're going to cut him loose, there's a lot of worries in there, right? Like you're trying to figure out where carries are going to go to Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, and Nick Chubb. My issue, I almost don't want to draft any of these guys. And I know Nick Chubb down at 41, I think that's going to come up as time goes on. I think people sometimes are just late to moving rookies up their rankings. But I do believe that Carlos Hyde does lead this backfield, but I am not touching him. I'm not picking him as a top 32 running back because there's so much risk. There's risk that he legitimately gets 10 touches per game and you're stuck with a worse version of Isaiah Crowell.
Yep. I totally agree. Tags, who's your fifth guy here, man?
My fifth guy, I put down 2 names, but which one do I want to note here? Man, I'm going to go with LeGarrette Blount just because, and he's down at 48, so it's not like he's high in the rankings or anything like that.
So you're saying just don't draft Blount?
I'm saying don't draft Blount. And the reason I'm saying that is because you don't go and draft Kerryon Johnson in the second round if you're planning on using him. And the reason is the whole Blount thing, I don't know what's happening because I know that Matt Patricia coming in, people are like, oh, is he going to recreate what the Patriots did? Well, he retained Jim Bob Cooter, the offensive coordinator. And if you've ever watched the Lions play football, you know that they're not a slow-moving offense. You know that they use their running backs in the passing game a ton, and they need to catch passes. LeGarrette Blount is not one to catch passes.
Has he ever caught a pass?
I think he's caught 2. 2, maybe. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you have one of the best third down backs in the game in Theo Riddick. Amir Abdullah is still on the roster for whatever reason. Like, trade him away, do something with him.
Oh, I hope the Jags get him, man. I'd be pumped about that.
Yeah, I'll even take him as a depth chart guy on the Bears because they have no one behind Jordan Howard who can handle a bigger workload. I think Abdullah can be that guy, but I'm still wondering about that. But anyways, you don't draft Kerryon Johnson and have Theo Riddick on the roster and then just keep them on the bench for plotting LeGarrette Blount. I get Blount is good in the role that he does, but I just have no idea. In Jim Bob Cooter's offense, he's basically like a Zach Zenner or a Dwayne Johnson. And if you remember Dwayne Johnson last year, he didn't do anything for your fantasy team. So he's basically on my do not draft list. I would much rather take someone who like would walk into a starting role if someone went down, like Kenneth Dixon, like TJ Yeldon. I would take those guys over LeGarrette Blount.
Who do you think the handcuff is behind Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette? Because like we know with the Jags, those guys are going to get a ton of carries, whoever it is. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell, too. And I think the answer is pretty obvious. I'm going to talk about him here in a second, even though it's kind of cheating because he's listed as a tight end, which is why it's so interesting. But behind Gurley and behind Fournette, who are the guys?
John Kelly is the guy that I would want in LA. I actually like John Kelly. I thought that he could walk in, get drafted, and be someone who could walk in and be in a timeshare, kind of like we envisioned for Alvin Kamara last year. I think that John Kelly might be the best receiving back outside of Saquon Barkley in this class.
If they had drafted, if Denver had drafted him instead of Royce Freeman, I think I'd be treating them pretty similar. I love Royce Freeman, but John Kelly is a very good player. I think he could be one of these guys that's drafted late. And let's say Gurley goes down for 13 games. I think Kelly could be a top 15 running back.
Yeah, I'd probably rank him, like, thinking about that. Like let's pretend that Todd Gurley was not there. Let's erase him for a second and think about that. I would probably put John Kelly right around that 18 to 22 running back range. Yeah, especially in PPR formats.
I'd put him 17. I'd put him ahead of Kenyan Drake, Derrick Henry, Alex Collins, Penny, Guice, Ingram. Yeah, if Gurley wasn't there. And the thing is, Gurley's probably going to be there, but as we've seen year to year, 25-30% of starting running backs are going to be out for the season. It's just what happens.
Yeah, that stuff happens all the time. And that's why, like, when you're talking about guys like LeGarrette Blount, he's not going to win you a fantasy league. Like, take guys who could be potential league winners down there. And that's why I say, like, as for the Jags, it's TJ Yeldon. If something happened to Leonard Fournette, Yeldon looked phenomenal last year.
He was good, wasn't he?
Yeah, and the thing is, what really sucks is like, so TJ Yeldon, I loved him coming out of college, and then like he came to the NFL and he just looked like a plotter. Like he didn't look nearly as explosive as I thought he'd be. He didn't look great his rookie season, and then they drafted Fournette, and I was like, okay, TJ Yeldon, your time is done. Like you're done because Fournette's a better running back. But Yeldon looked really good in that backup role last year. Like he looked like the running back I kind of thought he was going to be. So don't give up on him. Like he's definitely an upside play. Kenneth Dixon's one of those guys in that range.
Well, plus they just added Norwell to the Jags, right? I mean, he's probably the best guard in all of football. So their running game was already good. It's going to be even better now. The thing I'm worried about, though, is, I mean, they put a second-round tender on Corey Grant. So, if Fournette was to go down, I think Grant gets a fair amount of work.
Grant, I think, would be mixed in. I think it would be like a Chris Ivory thing with TJ Yeldon, where it's like you saw them last year when Fournette would miss. They would split some of the carries, although it was Ivory primarily. And then as the season went on, they're like, wow, TJ Yeldon's a lot better running back. Like, who would have thought? They started going with Yeldon. So I think Grant would move into that old TJ Yeldon role, whereas Yeldon would walk into the Ivory role. So, that's what I'm saying. Is just those are the guys you take late in drafts. Don't take LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, I think John Kelly is the best handcuff in all of football behind my guy Jalen Samuels. And, I was really high on, I don't even remember his name now, the backup running back that they drafted last year because...
James Conner.
Yeah, James Conner, because the running backs, Le'Veon Bell is kind of an injury-prone running back. And we saw with D'Angelo Williams. When D'Angelo Williams replaced Le'Veon Bell, do you know what he was? A little bit better than Le'Veon Bell. A little bit better than Le'Veon Bell, guys.
He was like the RB2 in fantasy year or something like that.
He was. He was absolutely incredible, and it was touchdown dependent. I'm not saying D'Angelo Williams is a better running back than Bell. I'm saying fantasy-wise, yeah, he was that year. He was better than Le'Veon Bell, and I'm not saying Jalen Samuels is anywhere in the category of a D'Angelo Williams or Le'Veon Bell. I'm just saying Steelers' offense is built for running backs, and if Bell goes down, they're going to need a workhorse. That's exactly what Samuel is. And he qualifies as a tight end, people. It's so beautiful. And maybe I shouldn't mention him because he's a tight end, but I'm drafting him in every single league.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to see how the backfield there shakes out and how they're going to handle it. If they're going to, like, now that Todd Haley's gone, are they going to not be a one-back system? Like, they're one of the only teams in the NFL that was kind of running that one-back system where it's like Le'Veon Bell gets like 95% of the touches back there, and that's really rare in the NFL. Randy Fitchner, the new offensive coordinator, you have to wonder if he's going to change things. I don't see why you'd mess with something that has worked. They've talked about running more of the no-huddle offense, so that would favor Bell. Jalen Samuels, I don't know how they're going to use him. I don't view him as a running back, like a full-time running back. I think he's built more like a fullback tight end, like hybrid. I do think they're going to...
Oh, like Peyton Hillis?
Yeah, kind of. I think, well, no, I don't think he's big. Like Peyton Hillis, the way he's built just looked like a hunchback, like just like ready to like run people over. But I still think James Conner would be probably the guy, even though it's not exciting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on that backfield after Le'Veon Bell. And I know the reason you're saying that, but I just don't think that there's anybody as talented on the roster that is as talented as D'Angelo Williams was. I think that there's just a couple, they're guys.
Okay, so he's not a top 5 running back. He's a top 15 running back. If you're giving me a 10% chance at a top 15 running back, wait, he qualifies at tight end? Okay, top 4 tight end. If you're giving me a 10% chance at a top 4 tight end, I'm drafting him in the last round.
That'd be so funny if that's actually what happened. Then you could start a running back at the tight end position that he has that eligibility.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at his comps in terms of athleticism and everything, his measurables on mockdraftable.com. But it's just showing me the tight ends that he's closest to, and it's like nobody is even close to him because he's a freak of nature, but he's also huge.
Yeah, no, it it's kind of funny. You're looking for comparables. No, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I can trust that Steelers backfield after Le'Veon Bell anymore. I understand why people would want to just because of what happened with D'Angelo Williams, but I think people forgot how talented D'Angelo Williams was. But the part that was shocking was just how good he was late in his career.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the closest running back comp. It's Larry Johnson.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, Eddie Lacy's number 2. How's that?
Uh-oh. That can't be good.
Well, Eddie Lacy was awesome for a couple years, man.
Eddie Lacy's out of the NFL, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, that is weird.
If you said that 3 years ago, like people would be like, "What?" But yeah, it's legit. Royce
Freeman is right up there too. Those are some good comps, man. I'm telling you. Jalen Samuels. All right, who's your first guy?
You'll be out in front of the curve on that one. My first guy, we've mentioned it already. It's Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Nobody, like, seriously, if I have one mission this offseason, and I'm going to continue to bang the drum for this, it's do not underestimate rookie running backs. Like, seriously, just don't do it. And some people are like, well, Mike, and someone mentioned to me on Twitter the other day, and I actually give him props for paying attention to all this. He goes, well, Mike, you do preach a lot about high scoring offenses and that an offense means a lot to a running back in terms of their upside. So why would you take Saquon Barkley as a top 6 pick?
I like the Giants offense this year.
It's a really fair question. That's what I told him. I said that I believe that Pat Shurmur makes a bigger change than most people think. I do think that Eli Manning is going to be competent under Pat Shurmur. I think the run game is going to be fine. They restarted rebuilding the offensive line with Nate Solder and drafting Will Hernandez. The wide receivers, if they're healthy, I mean, you have Odell Beckham, you have Sterling Shepard, you have Evan Engram out there as a receiver. Like, there's a lot of weapons in this offense. If their defense can get back to 2016 defense, like that they played, like that they were a top 5 defense in the NFL, that team is a sleeper. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to win a Super Bowl or anything like that, but they're so much better than they were last year. And Saquon Barkley, you don't draft a player like him at number 2 overall and not use him. They said that they wanted to draft a Hall of Famer. The only way you get to be a Hall of Famer is by getting those touches and racking up, points. So At the beginning of the offseason, I had Ezekiel Elliott as my number 3 running back, but knowing that offense and how much it's going to regress with some of the players they've lost, I'm taking Barkley at number 3.
I was going to say Barkley as well, and we talked about him pretty extensively. So let's just move on to your number 2. Since Barkley's my number 2, then I'll give my number 3.
We're going to continue with the rookie running backs, and this is one where I feel extremely strongly about, and it's Sony Michel.
That's my next guy too. Man, you're on fire.
It blows my mind how nobody has come around on this. He's number 26 in the consensus ECR, behind guys like Jay Ajayi, behind Alex Collins, behind Derrick Henry. No, Sony Michel, not only is he walking into a Patriots team where he's going to be walking into that Deion Lewis role that he had at the end of the year. Yes, guys, like Deion Lewis was doing that while Rex Burkhead was still on the field. Burkhead still had a role in the offense. It's not like Burkhead's going to go away. You do not, as a Patriots franchise, you do not draft Sony Michel at the end of the first round if you are not planning on using this kid a lot. He was the most pro-ready running back, I think, coming out of the draft, and I think that's even over Saquon Barkley in terms of like his pass protection skills.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. I was gonna say you were nuts.
Well, and this is going to be important, right? Because they just lost their Pro Bowl left tackle Nate Solder this offseason to protect Tom Brady, so they need someone in there to help protect. Sony Michel was one of the best pass blocking running backs in all of college football. So knowing he's going to be playing behind Isaiah Wynn, who was his guard or tackle, I should say, while at Georgia, that's also big because he's got some chemistry with him. He knows that. It's, we talk about the high scoring offenses. We're talking about a Patriots team. Since 2010, they have been top 3 scoring every single year.
No way. That's incredible.
No. I couldn't believe it. I went back and looked at it. And I was like,
Wow.
geez. So that's consistency, right? So you're getting the scoring there. You're getting a first round running backs who, by the way, I need to add this in. First round running backs on average in their rookie season over the last 5 years averaged 265 touches per year. They finish as an RB1 80% of the time.
Wow.
And when I looked into the strength of schedule, my method of doing it, which a lot of people have seen it on Twitter, Sony Michel has one of the easiest running back schedules, and this is very important because the Patriots are one of the few teams in the NFL who actually look at these things and they say, what's this team's weakness? And we're going to attack the crap out of it. So if Sony Michel has an easy schedule, they're going to attack it. And he's super talented. He's someone I compared to LaShawn McCoy. So Sony Michel should be a top 20 pick in terms of running backs. I would feel comfortable taking him. Right now I have him as the 17th running back.
I've got him 17 as well. Right now his ECR is 26. I feel like there's the biggest separation in terms of tier 3 to tier 4 that I have ever seen. Like right now, ECR 14, 15, 16 is McKinnon, McCaffrey, Mixon. And then after that, Dixon. There's a huge drop off between Mixon and Drake. I'm sorry, I said Dixon. It doesn't drop all the way off to Dixon. It drops off to Kenyan Drake. But between Mixon and Drake, that's a huge drop off. My next guy is not Drake though. It's Sony Michel, and it's really not very close for me. I've got Sony Michel as the obvious number 17. I would gladly take him in the 4th round if I needed to. I won't need to, though. I can get him in the 5th, maybe the 6th. I don't know if I'm going to wait that long. I'm going to grab him in the 5th just to make sure I can get him. Here's a few other nuggets. Game script for the Patriots, right? They're always going to be up. They're going to run the ball a ton. So even if Michel's splitting some work with people, he's still going to get a lot of work. Every single year, they lead the NFL. And not just lead the NFL, like the difference between them and second place is bigger than the difference between like 2nd and 10th place in terms of running the ball on the goal line, inside the 5, inside the 10, even inside the 20. So Michel's going to get a ton of opportunities there. I think he becomes the goal line back over Rex Burkhead, over James White. I think they drafted him in the first round for a reason. So huge fan. And, anyone outside that top 16 finishes in the top 5 there with Gurley, Bell, Elliott, Johnson. Actually, chances are one of them is going to get hurt. If any of them finishes in the top 5, I think it's probably going to be Michel.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at with it, and that's why I wanted to mention before we moved on to the next player is that, when we're talking about the built-in equity, like the fact that he's being ranked down at 26, his ADP is even lower than that. So, like, if you're doing best ball leagues, take advantage of Sony Michel right now. I know redraft, those leagues aren't going to be drafting for, a couple months, which really sucks because I firmly believe that Sony Michel will move up boards. There's the idea that Patriot running backs are too hard to predict. Tell that to the people that played Rex Burkhead and Deion Lewis in DFS last year.
You're right. I won some money with those guys for sure.
Yep. Everybody was scared to do it because they were Patriots running backs. I was not. And Sony Michel is the most talented running back that's been in New England for a long time.
I said earlier that Sony Michel is the best chance of finishing the top 5. I lied to you guys. Actually, I wasn't thinking of this guy, but Michel's second, and the number 1 guy is Aaron Jones, right?
In this range?
Anyone outside the top 16 with a chance to finish in the top 5. I think Jones has the best chance of anybody.
Jones, that's definitely one that I would consider for sure, because of the offense that he plays in. Obviously, they're going to be a top 5 scoring offense as long as Aaron Rodgers is on the field. And that would be one of the names I would mention for sure.
You had a stat last year. I don't remember exactly what it was, but Packers running backs, when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, wasn't every single one of them a top 5 running back?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I had something on the Andy Reid and the Chiefs, and then I also had something on the Packers where it's like Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember the exact numbers. It's something I'll probably do again this offseason because I enjoy that type of stuff, just showing people just how much it means to be in a starting role for one of these high-scoring teams. So I'll take a look at that. But what I can say is that 73% of top 6 running backs over the last 6 years, 73%, that's a large number, come from top 12 scoring offenses.
If Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, they're not just top 12, they're top 5, no doubt about it.
I agree with you. And that's what I'm saying. It's just like that's why it's a very valuable role, but I just don't know if the Packers have kind of moved towards like a 2-back system where it's like they want an Eddie Lacy and James Starks where it's like, it's like a 60-40 split rather than the 80-20. It does suck, but they did draft both those guys. If you know which one's starting, you want to draft them in the top 30 running backs because you're going to get multiple usable weeks out of them.
Aaron Jones right now, his ECR is 38, 1 spot behind Jamal Williams, if you can believe it. And I know some people think Jamal Williams was, is their choice or whatever because he got the first crack at it. He was drafted higher, but Aaron Jones was so much better than Jamal Williams. Like, Jamal Williams was one of the worst running backs in the NFL. Aaron Jones was extremely efficient. They had a bunch of offensive linemen hurt there too. So I've got I've got Jamal Williams number 40, so right about where he's being drafted. I've got Aaron Jones number 27, way up there. And while we're talking about this backfield, I've got Ty Montgomery number 42, right behind Jamal Williams. He was the starting running back last year, and he didn't really do much to lose it besides getting hurt. So maybe they give him a shot there. I think he's being way underdrafted as well. Ty Montgomery right now, ECR 57, so basically undrafted. He's right there with Frank Gore, Wayne Gallman, Nyheim Hines. So Ty Montgomery is someone I want to get in the last rounds. I'd take him actually over Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, no, I understand the want there. I don't know what they're going to do at Ty Montgomery. It's obvious that he's not built to be a running back or handle a big workload. I think we've already learned that because he just can't hold up to the high touches. He was never the type, he didn't grow up playing running back. He's not used to taking those hits week after week. And I understand the reason they wanted to move him to running back because it was kind of like a need they had to fill. He can catch passes out of the backfield, but they drafted 2 guys that can handle that workload. I just think he's more of like a third down guy now. He's going to be used in 4 wide receiver packages where they just trot him out there. He's like an upside pick later in drafts. I understand that. But as for Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, I'm so torn between those two. Like, I have them ranked almost right next to each other because I'm just waiting to see how, everything shapes up in the preseason. But if you can land, it's like that thing last year. Remember when we talked about Spencer Ware and Kareem Hunt last year, where I said it actually makes sense to draft both of them. If you're in like a best ball league, take both of them. And like they were going, I think Ware was in like the 7th round and Hunt was in like the 9th. I said take them both and you're guaranteed RB1 production out of one of them. I kind of feel that way about these two. I don't think it's going to be to that extent where it's like RB1 every week, but I do think that you'll get production if you snag both of them. And knowing where they're being taken, it's definitely possible.
All right, so I stepped on your foot. I went with my 4th guy before you even said your 3rd. So why don't you do your 3rd and 4th now?
All right, no, it's cool. Derrius Guice, another rookie running back. I'll continue to pound the table here, and the reason that I like Guice more than most is because when you factor in the time of the year where it would be the hardest for him to get snaps is the beginning, right? And that's also when Chris Thompson is going to be trying to work his way back from injury. He suffered a broken leg last year, so he might be eased back into action, which could give Derrius Guice a bigger sample, like a bigger a piece of the pie to start the season, and that's extremely important. Why? Because the Redskins, their schedule starts out so simple. Like he's someone that you want to draft, and I want to say after the first like 5 weeks, you're going to want to trade him away. But Derrius Guice is someone that's going to walk into a big role. They keep talking him up in preseason. They wouldn't have drafted him if they were happy with Samaje Perine last year. We know they weren't. They wouldn't have drafted Samaje Perine if they were happy with Rob Kelly, which we know they aren't. There's so many layers to this, but Guice, apparently talent was not the concern with teams. It was an off the field thing. So if the Redskins were willing to deal with whatever off the field, concerns there were, Derrius Guice is going to walk into it. He's walking into that 15 plus touches per game. And when you get that many touches per game, you're going to perform. Alex Smith, running backs have traditionally done well, not just under Andy Reid, but even back in San Francisco with Frank Gore. He presents a rushing threat. He's a mobile quarterback. There's not many reasons to dislike Derrius Guice, and especially when experts have him down at 23. I feel like he could be taken higher.
Yeah, I've got him at 18 right behind Sony Michel. So who's your number 4 guy here, Tags?
Number 4, I have a CJ Anderson, and this is one where it's just like, I have him here just because I know what volume means. We've talked about it. If a running back gets 200 touches, it's like a 97% chance that he finishes as a top 24 running back. CJ Anderson is, right now, the consensus on him is RB 36. Last year, Jonathan Stewart had 198 carries. He was extremely inefficient. Jonathan Stewart wasn't doing anything with those carries. He wasn't breaking any long runs. CJ Anderson has played behind a bad offensive line in Denver. He's played behind horrible quarterbacks that offer no mobility, but CJ Anderson continually was one of the most efficient first and second down running backs. Going to Carolina, I think Cam Newton being there helps. Christian McCaffrey being on the field obviously helps. There's enough threats to open things up for CJ Anderson. So even though I'm not willing to take him as a top 24 running back, because again, I want equity built in, I have him as the RB 30, which is 6 spots higher than the current ECR.
Yeah, I've got him right at the ECR. I've got him number 36. ECR is number 35. My number 5 guy, I could go a couple routes here, but I talk about Deontay Foreman and Tariq Cohen enough. You don't all need to hear that. You all know that I love those guys. I'm going to be drafting them in a bunch of leagues. ECR 42, 43. I've got them both up there in the 32 and 34 range. My final guy I want to talk about here is Joe Mixon. If you haven't heard, Joe Mixon cut some serious weight. Came in last year 238 pounds. He reported a minicamp at 225. It's a lot like what Le'Veon Bell did, and he's a kind of similar running back to Le'Veon Bell, and I don't throw that out there, but he is a full 3-down back. He can be a workhorse. He can catch passes out of the backfield with the best of them. He's got an elite athletic ability. He's got no competition. Gio Bernard is still there, but he's going to catch some passes. Right now, his ECR is number 16. I'm taking him number 9. I'm taking him ahead of Melvin Gordon. I'm taking him ahead of Dalvin Cook, who's coming off the big injury. Taking him ahead of Devontae Freeman, who's splitting work with Tevin Coleman. I've got Joe Mixon as my number 9 running back right now.
Wow. Well, I mean, so here's the thing. I love Mixon. I've been all over the buy Joe Mixon this offseason, and I do believe that there's a chance that he finishes as a top 6 running back. Like, I think that's in the realm of possibilities. Now, would I draft him over guys like Melvin Gordon? No, because I don't need to, because Joe Mixon's someone that you're able to get like at the tail end of the second, early third round right now. His price is actually more expensive than I thought it would be, because he didn't have like the greatest season last year, but I think people are starting to catch on that Joe Mixon is going to he's going to get 16 plus touches every week, and that's an important role. And the Bengals offense last year, they were just off on so many levels. Yeah. Like they haven't been great in a couple of years, but they've been competent. that could be the fault, right? If this offense doesn't move the ball as well as I think they could, that would be his fault in projecting him. But at the same time, I have him right now as my number 14, and I have him there because I think he could finish higher? Yes, but by taking him higher, I feel like you're kind of taking away some of the appeal in drafting him right now. Because some people are like, oh, Joe Mixon, he's just a guy. He's down in that, Derrick Henry territory. Kenyan Drake, he's going to be in a timeshare, yada, yada. I don't think that's the case. But at the same time, I'm not totally convinced in the offense and that they've totally turned a corner because, as far as I know, Marvin Lewis is still the head coach there, and he sometimes refuses to use his best players.
So, wait, who do you have 15 and 16? Because that whole range, it's very close.
Yeah, no, McCaffrey's right there. And Jerick McKinnon's right there. That's that range of those guys. And I would McKinnon and McCaffrey have been going back and forth. But I have Jordan Howard slightly ahead in standard formats. But if you go to PPR, it changes things for me. But talking in strictly standard, I would take Mixon over McCaffrey and McKinnon.
I like all those guys more. I've actually got McCaffrey as my number 10 guy. He is so consistent week to week because he's getting all those receptions too. You're getting a starting wide receiver who gets 6-7 receptions every single week, and you're getting a guy who gets 8, 9, 10 rushes, carries per week. So, and I think that's going to go up this year as well. I know C.J. Anderson's there, but Christian McCaffrey is so consistent. I've got him even ahead of Melvin Gordon. I've got Jerick McKinnon number 12.
Wow. Well, so you see, the thing is, I like McCaffrey in PPR. Like, I think I have him as my number 10 or 11 running back in PPR formats. But in standard, it just moves him down to like that 15 range because he's not going to get more than 10 carries a game. Like, that's just not going to happen. But that's why I would take Mixon over him. McKinnon, that's the territory where it's like you could start debating between McCaffrey and McKinnon, where I think McCaffrey might be safer, but McKinnon might come with higher upside.
All right, Tags, who's your last guy?
The last one I'll mention, we kind of talked about him already, is Kenneth Dixon. I'm not saying that he's going to walk in and just have the starting job right away. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is when the consensus is number 59, I think that you're overlooking a guy that looked really good when he did play, suffered an injury and then got suspended. And there's been a lot that's gone on with this, but we mentioned the fact that Alex Collins got just a 1-year deal, which could show more confidence in Dixon than we thought.
Yeah.
It was a running back heavy draft, and I was wondering if Baltimore was going to draft a running back. They didn't. So there's some things around this that make me feel like they haven't completely given up on Kenneth Dixon. So when you say 59th, that's basically saying that he's like one of the worst handcuffs in football. I would actually argue that he's one of the better ones. Worst case scenario, he's one of the middle of the pack because he's actually someone that can actually walk into a starting role before long. Like they might say, Alex Collins, we brought you back. We appreciate what you did, but we're going to have Dixon as the main guy, and you're going to kind of mix in with him to see how it works. That's very possible. So to see him down at number 59 in standard, like behind guys like, LeGarrette Blount, Kenneth Dixon should be going ahead of those guys.
I've got him number 49 too, and I want to see just where you stand on him. Like, do you have Spencer Ware over Dixon?
Spencer Ware is a tough one. I don't have Spencer Ware over him just because I don't think there's any chance that Spencer Ware starts as a starter. I have Spencer Ware down. It's like a handful, I think 6 spots lower than Dixon. And it's just because, like I said, I think there's a chance Dixon walks in as the starter immediately. Not likely, but it's possible. But there's no way that Kareem Hunt loses the starting job.
If he gets suspended, we'll see what happens with that whole legal issue.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is it reminds me of like the whole Ezekiel Elliott thing where
nobody's talking about it.
It seems like there's no legal trouble that's stemming from that, where nothing has been. I don't think anything has been pursued, but nothing was with Zeke either. Like he didn't lose in court or anything like that, and they looked into it and they decided that there was domestic violence and that he should be suspended. So that's one thing that we haven't heard much about, which could be like a little red flag, but I'm probably not getting Kareem Hunt in many leagues just because I have guys like Leonard Fournette higher than him in my rankings.
Okay, what about, I know how you feel about Peyton Barber, but I've got Peyton Barber higher right now, which is kind of funny. Doug Martin, Devontae Booker, do you have Dixon ahead of those?
Doug Martin's really close. Doug Martin, I have actually a spot higher than Kenneth Dixon. And the Martin one is interesting because we have Marshawn Lynch, who's like 90. He's like Frank Gore Jr., where it's like, is this guy ever going to stop? Like, he looked really good at the end of the last year, so I'm not going to take that job from him. But I also don't think you bring in Doug Martin just to like collect dust on the bench. You could have just drafted a running back to do that. You also had Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington on the bench already. So I think Doug Martin might be involved more than some people think. And it's possible that if something happens with Lynch, like maybe his back starts acting up again, obviously Martin would walk into a workhorse role.
Or he just retires, like, just feels like it.
Oh, he could do that. That's definitely a possibility. As for Peyton Barber, absolutely not. I think I would rather have Rod Smith than Peyton Barber. Rod Smith is Ezekiel Elliott's backup, and I don't think.
I mean, if Barber is the backup, yeah, I'm taking Barber like RB90. But right now, he's the starter. I've got him RB41. I'm sorry.
I can't do it. It's kind of like people when they were telling me that Cameron Artis-Payne was going to be the starter for the Panthers. I was like, guys, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I hope you're right, man.
Yeah, Ronald Jones is a starter.
Okay.
I hope his price falls because of this, though. I really do.
3 more names here. Actually, let's throw in a 4th one here, okay? Jonathan Stewart. A lot of people think he might vulture touchdowns from Barkley. I disagree.
He might even get cut, actually.
Darren Sproles.
Sproles. Where is Sproles on my list? I have him a couple spots behind Dixon in a standard league, but in PPR, I'd take Sproles over him because Sproles, he can actually give you flex production. Like, it's not going to be great, but if you're searching, like, let's say that you went quarterback and tight end heavy early on and you're like, man, there's a lot of running backs and wide receivers gone. You could look at Darren Sproles for like a low end flex production.
You know, Sproles, every time he's healthy, he's a top 30 running back. I don't know if he's going to be healthy. He's older too, but I've got him RB41 right now, and I won't mind playing him in the flex, especially in a PPR league. That one's obvious, though. Okay, 2 other names. Kerryon Johnson. I've got him RB53 right behind Dixon.
Oh, wow. So you're even lower on Kerryon Johnson. I have up at 31, so I'm actually higher on him than most.
Oh, wow, okay.
But and let me just be clear on this. I am like so not a fan of where Kerryon Johnson landed. I think it's a terrible landing spot with all the players they have there. But LeGarrette Blount, I don't know. They grabbed him before they drafted Kerryon Johnson, so things can change there. Theo Riddick, he's a 3rd down running back. They don't want to give him much work. I want to see Amir Abdullah traded.
If that happens, I'll move him way up my list. There's just so many mouths to feed there that I don't think he walks into the role.
Why do you draft him in the 2nd round then? And didn't they trade up to get him? I want to say that Detroit traded up to get Kerryon Johnson. I could be wrong. Like there's so many things going through my head right now, but I have a hard time believing you draft a running back in the 2nd round. And going back to my research in terms of running backs, 2nd round running backs over the last 5 years, there have been 13 of them drafted in the 2nd round. They average 178 touches per year. The average fantasy football finish is the RB34. So
wow, okay.
I have him at 31, and I might be a little too high, and that might come down. It's just I might need to revisit my projections and bump LeGarrette Blount up higher than I have him because like currently I have him for 85 carries, which might be just too low. Maybe I need to bump down Kerryon Johnson, but at the same time, I would definitely take him over Kenneth Dixon.
So you've got him 31. That means you have him over Marlon Mack.
I do.
I don't like you very much right now.
I have Mack at 37. And the thing is, I could be completely wrong on Mack. Like, he was someone I wanted to take over the job last year, but it concerned me that the Colts didn't even want to give him an opportunity. I think it was their time to let Mack try and shine because it was like you weren't going anywhere as a franchise. You had Frank Gore there, who you knew was going to be gone at the end of the year.
Or don't let him get hurt. Just let Frank Gore go out there and run the ball 35 times in the snow so Marlon Mack's all shiny and new for when Andrew Luck comes back.
Correct. And that's the thing is Luck returns back to form. I could be wrong on Marlon Mack. And like he's someone that I could absolutely see if they're like, yeah, he's going to be the starter. I could see moving him above someone like Jay Ajayi.
Okay, the last name I was going to ask you about, and I'm sorry I'm kind of dragging this out, but I really want to know what you think. If McKinnon isn't like the full-on workhorse, bell cow back for the 49ers, what do they do behind him? Who's getting the touches?
It's got to be Matt Breida.
It's got to be Joe Williams. They love Joe Williams.
That's the thing. I think they started falling out of love. They said that he was on the roster bubble as training camp went on last year. And I know that the whole draft thing, like the beat reporters out of San Francisco could not have been more wrong about projecting that backfield. But Matt Breida,
yeah.
Matt Breida is someone that like playing behind a pretty poor offensive line last year, averaged 4.4 yards per carry. He showed a little bit in the receiving game. He still is an undrafted free agent, but the reason that I think Breida is like interesting in like a best ball format is because we know that McKinnon has struggled on 1st and 2nd down throughout his career. So it's very possible that that struggle continues and they look to Joe Williams or Matt Breida. As the year went on, his role grew more and more. Like 12, I pulled it up just now. Week 13, 12 carries. Week 14, 12 carries. Week 16, 11. Week 17, 12. So they started giving him more and more carries as the year went on. If something happened to Jerick McKinnon, if he got hurt, most people would run to Matt Breida, which is fine, but you should be the person rostering Joe Williams at that point because his price is the one where Matt Breida's is right now.
Like, Breida's ceiling is what? RB 25? Joe Williams' ceiling, if McKinnon goes down and they let him be the workhorse he can be, he is a freak, athletic freak of nature, like top 5 biggest freaks of any running back in the NFL.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like a Tevin Coleman situation without Devonta Freeman, right? Like, So Jerick McKinnon is essentially walking into the Devonta Freeman role, and then they're going to ask, that's the thing, is it Matt Breida, is it Joe Williams taking on that Tevin Coleman role? So it's hard to say, just because I don't think either of them necessarily
It's Breida
fit.
because Joe Williams in college, I mean, he hardly did anything. He had 20 receptions.
Well, even looking at Breida last year, like, his completion rate in the passing game wasn't great. I don't think he's like a great receiver. I think he's, I guess, competent, but I don't think either of them. That's why I was really shocked to see them not draft a running back. I still felt like they were going to draft a running back in this class, but they didn't, which gives me more confidence that they're going to just ride Jerick McKinnon for at least 1 year.
You know, Joe Williams in college, by the way, averaged 156 yards with Utah. That's not an easy schedule there in the Pac-12.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I know there were some people that were really high on Joe Williams. I wasn't one of them, but it's not.
I am.
Once we get to the actual season and, like, if there's volume in front of a running back, I typically want him on my team.
All right, man, that's all for today's podcast, and we went a little bit longer, but you know what? It's running backs. It's very important. So, Tags, it was a lot of fun, man.
It was fun. It was, and that's the thing is, like, as the offseason goes on and on, we're going to touch on a lot of different positions, and we're going to get a lot of good nuggets out there. Hopefully you guys learned something today.
Yep. I can't wait for drafts, dude. And speaking of drafts, we've got draft.com. Remember the special offer, the sponsor of today's show. Go to fantasypros.com/offer. If you're a new user, deposit $10. You'll get a 6-month premium package to our highest upgrade. That'll cover Draft Wizard. It'll cover My Playbook, baseball, DFS, all those things for 6 months. And it's just $10 to upgrade if you use fantasypros.com/offer. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.